This is such an exciting day for me because I'm here and just having a conversation with my great friend, Regina. How are you, Regina?
I'm doing great, Susie. Good to see you.
Oh, thank you for being here. I really appreciate this. And it's so nice to just talk to somebody that has had such a successful career and we're good friends. So it's like you and I are just sharing a cup of coffee and these people are listening in. So that's how you should see it.
Sounds wonderful. Sounds wonderful.
Awesome. Well, I told in the introduction, I talked a little bit about where you came from and your just amazing career and all the things you've accomplished. But from your words, when you look back on what you've accomplished and what you've done, what are maybe tell me a few stories or tell me about some times that really stick out for you.
Great. Well, first of all, I love when you always talk to me. I feel like you put me on a pedestal. So thank you. Because that just helps with I think when I look at my background, just with confidence. And
Yes.
I always go back to when I first became a supervisor and had people reporting into me. And, the first few times I'm like, I hope I say the right thing. Or when I had to terminate someone because of performance, it was difficult. And I realized over the years, as long as you keep your soul and your heart in the work that you're doing and stay very, very transparent and true to yourself and authentic, you can do all those things. And that's what helps to build your confidence. And it doesn't matter if I do it a little differently, Susie, than you may have done it in some situations. Every time I do it, it kind of just, as long as I'm me going into it, and I think that's the key thing that I've always felt was important, be authentic, be authentic. Then it'll always work out. Or I'll make a mistake, which I have, and I can share some of those along the way, and I'll learn from it and hopefully not make it the next time, but not get drowned by it, but really learn from it and just, find a way to not do it again. Um,
Oh, yeah. Before you tell your stories, I have to just dig into one thing. And you don't know this, but you and I as friends, one thing I've admired about you is you say no to people. You're fine with, and like you said, just be authentic and honest. And as a friend, I've heard you in our poker parties or somebody will say, let's do a road trip. And you'll be like, I'll just say yes because I feel like that's a popular thing to do. And you'll say, hey, have fun. But
yeah,
no, not my thing.
yeah.
And I think I talk to so many people that have a really hard relationship with no. So I really admire that about you. Tell me about that first, and then I want you to. Sorry, I'm taking you off the trail.
No, I shouldn't start with the word no, how ironic. That did not come easy, Susie. In fact, when I think back to development plans that I had earlier in my career, when I was managing, bigger size groups, but still early in my career, learning how to say no was always on my development plan because I would overcommit.
Huh.
I would, take my group and say, oh, we can do this, or I would have a hard time sometimes delivering the difficult information. As I moved on, a couple of things. First of all, I learned you can say no. And someone once told me you can say no with a smile, Regina, and that's what makes the difference. And it's not that I'm saying it with a smile, but I'm saying it in a way that this is best for me to say no and not
Oh.
take this on. And I'm doing it in an empathetic way to you. So I hope you'll see that sincerity in the smile that I'm coming across. And I did really learn how to just stop putting guardrails up and saying no. I also learned, and I think we've all kind of have seen this, as we get closer or go further along our age, and get further along the yardage, so to speak, and know that we can start making choices. There's some things I just say, I don't want to spend my time doing that any longer. Or that would be nice to do, but I have enough already on my plate and I'm not going to take it on. So I am much more comfortable with saying no. I just said no this morning to someone that asked me if I wanted to go to a certain movie tomorrow. And I said, to be honest, I don't even like that kind of movie. So no, I know it sounds important and it's Christmas time and, all these different things, but let me find a different way I can spend time with you than doing that. Cause that's not for me.
Oh, it's such a great lesson. And it's great that you've really come to a really healthy relationship with no. And
Yeah.
I've noticed it and
Yeah.
want to. I love those techniques too. And it takes time to kind of feel that that's authentically you.
Yeah. And getting comfortable with it. But back to what I was saying on being authentic, when I
Yeah.
first started out in my career, I remember watching leaders that I just admired so much. And I used to say, what do I like about that person? One of the things was they always made me feel welcomed and heard. And so I
Hmm.
thought that's what I want to be, that type of leader. Someone that no matter how smart you are or what your title is, I'm going to stop and listen to you and welcome and listen to your side of what the situation, the issue is. And I prided myself just as I was moving along that I could work with all different levels of organizations because of that. I love being in the front line and, riding out with a technician back in the days or being on a production floor and asking someone, how do you do that? And, what's hard about that? And on the other hand, I love when I get to sit at a senior table, kind of all polished up and be able to present to them and feel like they're listening because I have something to offer to them that they're just too busy to maybe have known or have been able to dig into at that time. So that's kind of been the other thing, is being able to make sure that I could listen and then be able to surround myself with all different levels of organizations.
Yeah. Yeah. How did you work on being heard?
Well, first of all, I'm not a serious person, as you know, just in general. So I don't think anyone would ever say, well, she's a little, buttoned up or too analytical. So I'm someone that comes in with the social aspect of it, to being heard. And I really try to find some little opening of a window to get to know someone in a way that is a little more than just whatever the document's in front of us, whether it be why they want to take on this project or why they're so invested in something. Um, and so I think because I start with that, I think that that's what I start with is, hi, this is who we are. And, I'd love to get to know you. It's a
Mhm.
little easy to be heard. And then, of course, I think because you learn and you learn when you do something and, you did it well, and you feel confident about it, people will bring you back. And I kept hanging on to those little things. I remember, I'm going to go way back to the maybe 1980s. The first time I was involved in putting together a performance management system, which back in the days was kind of, new wave. And I remember just delivering that up, and I was working at Comcast at the time, to all these leaders in that particular region, and I felt so good. It was a little thing, but it meant so much, and everybody was listening. And then as I'd see them using it and making a difference with the people they were coaching and managing, it just became a bigger thing. Then I felt like I could do more with it, and then have a bigger voice at the next table on where we could take it. And that's kind of how I've built off of some of the things in my journey.
Gosh, that's such a great illustration of what people need to know as leaders is your leadership goes beyond just the team that you're leading.
Hmm.
You're seen in a broader way and you could influence more people. So you're always being watched. So
Yeah.
that was a great way to learn that early.
Hmm. And always, my grandmother used to always say, don't burn a bridge. You never know when you're going to walk over it, right? And I think I've learned since I was a little kid to just never leave anyone feeling, never be disrespectful in any way that I've burnt a bridge, because you never know when you're going to come back onto that. And all of my career, I could probably connect dots of just people that I've come back and connected with and how that's helped me as I've kind of further expanded and gotten to have greater opportunities presented to me.
Yeah. Tell me about how did you have it all? Like
Have
when
it all?
people talk, yeah, when people talk about, because I mean, it's not a secret to me, but like you were the breadwinner and you had two sons
Yep.
and you had a very important, or I shouldn't say important, that's not probably the right word, a critical role in the organization that had a lot of high visibility.
Hmm.
So when somebody says that, like what comes to mind? What advice or what did you learn along the way and how did you do it all?
Yeah. First of all, support came to mind when you first asked that. I needed support at lots of different levels. I needed support from behind me, so from my husband and my kids, so that I could go out and do that part of the work. I also needed support from leaders and people that I reported into that would kind of give me opportunities to be presented so that I could be challenged.
Mm,
And they felt like, we'll give her a try. She hasn't proven us wrong yet. And so I have found that some of my best experiences have been because I've had very supportive leaders, and you earn that. It's two ways. I make them look good as best as I can in all
mhm,
situations. So learning how to manage up, I think, is
mhm.
really an important thing that everybody needs to learn at some point. And instead of complaining about your leader or a situation, you got to find what's the way, what's the win-win that's going to help it to be look good for you and for your manager. And then I honestly say, like, just having good family and support, or reaching out and knowing when you need something is upfront, and having those upfront conversations. Like, this isn't going to be easy. I'm going to be on the road X amount of time. Can we do this? And if we can't, then sometimes you say no. I remember I was going to go back for my doctorate maybe about 15 years ago. And I said to my husband, okay, I've met with the schools, I'm all ready. And he said to me, and what are you going to give up at that point? He goes,
Oh,
and so just him asking that
yeah.
question showed that he was supportive of me doing it. But what was I going to take off my plate?
Yeah.
Because he was supporting to know that he didn't want me to over commit and really, mess that up. So I think you really need to just find people, whether it be your significant others or friends, or even coaches, that will ask those questions along the way, but that are offering that support and giving you support entirely. Yeah.
Yeah. You said two things, two mic drop moments in there that we have to go back to. One is managing up, and I want to talk a little bit about the techniques around that. And then also just being an advocate for yourself and for others. And you're an executive coach now. You work with a lot of senior leaders. Can you tell me what do you tell them that they need to do to, what does managing up mean? I mean, you said finding what's the interest of your boss and making sure that you are aligned with that and do what you can to forward their agenda. I'm putting
Mhm.
words into your mouth, but
Okay.
what are some techniques when people, they need to manage up? And I think about it managing up and kind of managing to the side too, because the more you're seen within the organization, you build your influence. And then as you build your influence, that's a positive thing because that allows you to be a more effective leader. So talk to me
Mhm.
about how you coach somebody and how you experienced it.
Yeah, and when I think of managing up, it all comes down to, first of all, what's the different styles and what's the different preference between you and the person that you're reporting into at the time. Because if I have a manager that's a micromanager and wants to be in the detail, when I'm managing up, I'm trying to coach people on how do you present certain things to that person so that they know that you got this,
Hmm.
and ask them when do they want to call a timeout. But you almost have to not ask for permission. You got to almost ask them, what do they really want, so that they can have time to do other things, because you got it covered. So you're really showing them, whether it be by giving them a little, I don't know, a little tutorial, or whether it be something that you present to them once a week, that they know you got it so they don't have to stay in your business.
Hmm.
On the other hand, you could be managing up someone who, and some people have hands-off leaders, which is great. They let you do it all. And then all of a sudden they're caught in a situation they don't know about, something that's going on. And that's a whole different scenario. So with those folks, it's even a little more different on finding out from the beginning, what are you going to provide to them, so to speak, so that they won't get caught. And if they need something, how can you make yourself available, have that information available to them right away, so that they're, not caught off guard. So there's a couple little tips. But you might be managing someone that's just a whole different style. I mean, I've
Hmm.
managed people that were reported into people that were very analytical, and I'm not very analytical. And so I learned in order to manage that person, don't go in and just talk a story in this. I have to give them the data,
Hmm.
right? And I
Yeah.
have to learn how to give them the data and present the
Yeah.
data in a way that's going to make them comfortable. So knowing someone's style, excuse me, knowing someone's style, this might be a little,
We can take a break.
sorry,
No, take a
I'm
take a
like,
minute. You good? Okay.
knowing someone's style is like so critical, to
Hmm.
managing up. And then, the other thing I always think of when you're managing up is making sure that you find a way to always make your boss either have more time on their plate or look good, because that's really what your goal is. And if you can be doing that and finding ways, I present something, I'm doing the work behind the scene, but Susie, when you go in as my leader, you're going to shine. Then you're a very happy person to be on their team. You're doing the right thing that they want. So it's kind of a game in a way. And if it doesn't work, the last resort, and I coach people on this all the time, they say, oh, I've done that, it's not working. You got to go in and have a crucial conversation. You got to go
Hmm.
in and you got to say, in a very serious way, we need to talk about this. this is what it's feeling like for me and what I'm observing. I'd like to hear how you're observing it, and how do we get to a win-win on the shared goal that we need to work together.
Yeah.
And sometimes it takes that, and that can be the tipping point of a wonderful long-term relationship.
And can that be the employee that does that to their team lead?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Never catch them off guard. Never put your manager like under the bus or question anything that
Hmm.
they're saying, especially in front of anyone. And, but if you plan for that and just, purposely say, I'm really
Yeah.
having a difficult time. I'd love to have a conversation about this. Let them know what it's going to be about. Don't have it planned out. It's not a script. Then by all means, it is a very brave and powerful
Hmm.
thing for someone to do that with their leader.
Yeah, I love that. And even asking them, how do you like to get your information? Like you said earlier, like really understanding that too. But
Yes.
yeah, if it's not working, being courageous enough to and frame it in a way when you go in there, I want to make sure that I can be can be a contributor to your success.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to just touch base
Yep.
with you and I feel like we're a little bit off. So I
Yep.
want to see what I can do to
Yep.
adjust that.
Yep, because we want to have the shared goal. We want to get to, and
Hmm.
I think as all leaders, with people either that we're working for or that work for us, we want to be focused on the shared goal. What are we trying to accomplish here? And sometimes it gets lost just because of personality and because of differences. And sometimes you just have to call that time out and have that conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really great. That's such good advice. Thanks
I
for
know.
for that. And you also mentioned advocating, and I know that you and I have talked a lot about this. And I right now I've been saying to people, you just expect that there'll just be this moment in time where somebody will raise a sign and go, "Okay, go advocate for you," or "Go advocate for your team." But it's not always that obvious, and it's
Mm-hmm.
not always comfortable. And
No.
so, talk to me about. I often get, how do you advocate? What do you do to advocate? How do you? So if you had to answer that question, what would you say? And how did you become an advocate?
So, when I think of advocating, I think of just building the confidence that someone can do something and really
Hmm.
being able to showcase them. Many times people are doing their work and they're doing their work, but they don't stop to pause to just say, hey, how did I get this done? And who helped me along the way? And how do I go back and thank that person for that? And then when I go reach out to them in another 3 months for something, how do I tie that back to that? And part of advocating is doing all those little things along the way so that then when you have to advocate for someone, if I want to call you and advocate that, you should really consider hiring this person, I don't want it to be just a cold call. I want to have said, oh, I talked to Susie about this at this point, and remember that experience when so and so did this, and this is how she or he showed up. So it's all the little things that kind of add up in being able to advocate for a person or for a cause. Um, Doing your homework is a big part of advocating, right? You don't want to get caught there and not be prepared. But I also think that very often when we're advocating for each other, sometimes we have to just go out on a limb and take a chance.
Hmm.
If I see someone and they've done an incredible job in this space and have shown me that they can do these things and these are their skills, I'm willing to advocate for them to take on a little more the next time,
Hmm.
right? And if I saw them make a mistake and learn from it and self-reflect and own that, I'm even more happy to be
Yeah.
able to advocate for that person on this is what how they fell, but this is how they got up then, and this is what they're doing. So I think advocating is a lot about building the little stories along the way so that when you have something big to advocate for, it's a lot easier and you can tie it back to something that the person you're presenting to can relate with. Does
I
that kind of get it?
Yeah, I love
Those two.
the little stories along the way to
Yeah.
make sure. And I love also what you said about, if you go the extra mile, that leader is so much more likely to do something for you. And I always say too, if you want people to advocate for you, be really clear about where you're going. It's not
Mhm.
their responsibility to know what you want to do next or how
No.
you want to flex your professional muscle. But when you tell people where you're headed or what things you want to do, so many
Yep.
senior leaders are like, I see these opportunities. I can place this person in here or give them this opportunity. So it's not a
Yeah.
selfish act too. And you're good about advocating for yourself as well and having that confidence. So tell me about that. How did you build that muscle?
Um, I fell a few times and learned not how not to do it. I also learned we need to sometimes just feel good about the things that we do.
Yeah.
There's so many things that go on that are great. Whether if you're coaching someone that's on your team and you see them making a difference, you need to feel good about that. I mean, you want them to own that
Yeah.
and have pride in it. But as a coach or as a leader, you should feel good about that. So sitting back and kind of saying, what are the things that I did in my career that make me feel proud, and then advocating for those. One of the things is, I have had people that have reported through me or around me on teams that have gone on much further than I did in my career. That makes me really happy. I know some people
Yeah.
will be like, why? Well, that's not what I needed at the time. That's where they were at. And I was someone that helped to kind of just be in the right place to kind of push them to that next level. And now they're people that we call each other all the time, to consult on different things and coach each other. But they've gone further, and that's great. I think sometimes advocating for myself was a matter of just being able to get positive feedback and support once again. And that goes back to what I said earlier. If you can find a leader and let the leader know what you need for support and have them periodically kind of
Yeah.
give you that kind of little, whether it be a pat on the back or whether it be, just a little words of encouragement, then that helps for you to advocate for the next thing. And now I feel like now I'm doing a little volunteer work and I'm starting to advocate for things that are more, I don't want to say social issues, but they're not work related and they don't have a dollar,
Yeah.
sign attached them or a profit. And sometimes those are the harder things to advocate because you're working with, volunteers or people that aren't being paid. And I love that work because it's the little things that when you're doing it, if you're advocating and trying to get something done that doesn't have a profitable payoff, that really shows you're making a difference, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of where
Gosh.
it's going.
That's so good. And it goes back to the point we said too about when you advocate for yourself as a leader, other people notice that too, and you're teaching them
Yeah,
the right way to do it.
yeah, yeah.
So it can be really powerful.
I love sports and I love football, and I always, wonder like which coaches of football ever played football, or does it matter? And it really probably doesn't matter at some points, as long as they're coaching them and advocating for them and being there. And I think that that's what I saw in my career. I got to coach people that I couldn't do the jobs that they did. That just wasn't my skill set, or it wasn't even my interest, but they were good enough at it. And I was there to advocate and just kind of push them along that they excelled.
That's
So
awesome. I bet people can't guess what team you root for.
probably not. Probably not.
New York, I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe one of those up in the
Maybe,
New England
maybe up
area.
there.
Who
Maybe New
knows?
England. Yeah.
Maybe.
We won't talk football.
No, not today at least.
No. Yeah, really not in this season. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So, you know that I talk a lot about leverage, and I really want to change people's perception because leverage often people think about it taking away from somebody else, finding the vulnerability and taking advantage of that. So, as a leader, when you think of leverage, what's your angle?
Um, so when I think of leveraging, it's how to either leverage the situation or the person. So let's talk about the
Mm,
person. And to leverage a person so that you can then have one up, so to speak, when you need something from them, then doesn't happen overnight. So building relationships and nurturing them and keeping them year over year over year is really important. And even if it's a quick shout out, like, once a year, every 18 months to someone, hey, I was just thinking about your name came across LinkedIn and I'm dropping you a note. That is really so important because you
mhm.
don't know when you're going to need that person for something else. So I think that I always used to say networking starts one cup of coffee at a time. Um, but
Oh, that's
it's
great.
it's it's one conversation and it's keeping it going, right? It's not just calling someone when you need it. And I think if you ask anyone, they'd say my network's pretty expansive,
Yeah.
and I think it's just because I try to do that. We're not using it in a way that's like just my own
Mm-mm.
self appreciation, but using it in a way that I know it's staying healthy and nurturing in case I need it down the line. Um, Leveraging then in a situation like then, so now you have the people like you can work with, but then you go into a situation and you need to leverage, and some of it's being able to negotiate. And I've learned a lot of that from my dear friend Susie, and to know, what's your bottom line? What are you really
Yeah.
looking for here?
Hmm.
What do you want, and what you need, and being able to leverage something that's in the middle of that,
Yeah.
right? And when it doesn't work out, if this is what you said, that was, just your bottom line, you walk away from it. You got to feel good about it and
Feel
not be
good
like,
about it. Don't question
wallow.
it.
Oh
Yeah,
my gosh, I didn't win that battle, right?
absolutely.
So a lot about leveraging is really figuring out what's going to be the win, what you want to really get out of this, and where's your line before you see it as a loss. And if you can kind of figure that out, I think you can leverage a lot of situations. And once again, just don't lose yourself in it. Be authentic. Don't ever give yourself up when you're leveraging and become someone different than who you are.
Yes.
Because if you do, it's not going to work out anyways.
Mm-mm.
So if I'm trying to, get a new contract, or if I'm trying to even leverage a conversation with one of my kids, I kind of
Yeah.
have to know the bottom line and the top line
Yeah.
and know where I'm going to settle in the middle to find it to be a win for me.
Absolutely. Clarity is confidence for
Yeah.
sure. You have said so many great things in there. This is definitely something that people have to listen to twice, because just like networking and really being clear and understanding what you're going for and being okay with a walk away.
Yeah.
Wow.
I
You said
know.
it all.
I
You're
know.
amazing. You're amazing.
Not really, but
Totally. Oh my gosh. It's so funny that you talk about networking. I've told you this before, and you do have a massive network that people know you. And I'm never afraid to say, I know Regina Hutchinson, because you are so well regarded and so respected that all these tips are something that somebody could take away to build that kind of credibility. So we appreciate your wisdom, Regina. Thank you so much for being
thank
here.
you. Thank you, Susie. This was wonderful. And it's always a pleasure. And I think of the world and of you. And let's keep lifting up this world with great leaders.
Totally, completely. And if you know somebody that needs to hear Regina's story, share this podcast with them so that they can benefit from her stories, her words of wisdom. So thanks, Regina.
Thank you.